What I'll get you to do as you are just settling in, could you just chuck into the chat where you were dialing in from? Just get a feel for where people are in this beautiful country of ours. I don't think there's anyone overseas. There might be. Hamilton, Kirikiriroa, Tauranga, Hamilton, Latron, sunny Tauranga. I like that. Pukekohe. Whangarei, nice. Taniwha Country, Morrinsville, Gordonton. Hey, Kayleen. Hamilton, Tauranga, Taupo, Hamilton. Tauwhare Waikato. The kitchen bench, I like that. Good, Clive. Hamilton, Rukahia, Matangi, Hamilton. Robbo from Te Aroha. It's got a ring to it. Raglan, Kia ora tātou, Chantel, Hamilton, Sunny, Hamilton. Auckland Rugby, beautiful day. G'day, Robbo. This is good. You Plymouth? Oh, yeah. Swanee, how are you? Cambridge, Waikato, Mount Maunganui. Ngārohia. Oh, yeah, we get around. Cambridge, home of champions. It's got 2 heart emojis already. I like that. The Mount Hamilton. Oh, who da? Oh, kia ora, David. We might get you to have a chat in a minute. Roto Rangi. This is good. Well, welcome. We will crack into it, team. Welcome to this Raw Coaching Power Hour. We're real excited for this one. Obviously, DG is a bit of a legend. We're very lucky to have him here today. So we'll get him to have a bit of a yarn in a minute. But I'll very quickly introduce who we are. So yeah, Raw Coaching Power Hour. Raw Coaching, we've been around for 9.5 years now. This is what we do. We develop leaders who create environments where others thrive. And we do that in 3 main ways. We do a lot of one-on-one coaching with leaders in business and a little bit in sport, which is, it's still a really important place. So 100% confidential environment. Nothing leaves the room. No judgment here, and that's a space for you to unpack your world and figure out who you are and where you want to get to and how you want to impact people. Team culture work that we do. So how do we create a really awesome environment where we create that psychological safety where people feel safe to speak up or challenge or bring their full authentic self to mahi, and leadership development as well. So you may see yourself in this statement, but often if you're good at your job, an opportunity might present itself to become a team leader, lead some other people, and often we are not giving any training to make that transition from being good at doing the job to now I've got to achieve success through other people, and I need different skills and a different skill set to lead and give clarity and empower them to do the job and for me to grow them. So we run public and bespoke workshops around leadership development, and here's a couple that we've got coming up. So our 1-day leadership fundamentals workshop is a really popular one. We've been doing that for 18 months now. There are the dates coming up. So next week in Cambridge, September, Mount Surf Club, 21st of August at Eden Park. They go really well. And in early September, we've got our 2-day Beyond Leadership Fundamentals, which is basically more time to go deeper, like figure out what's really at the heart of you, where you're not serving yourself, and actually how do we propel the full authentic version of you. So that's who we are. In terms of a power hour, why do we have a power hour? We run this every month, typically towards the end of the month, 1 hour on a Friday, 11 till 12. It's designed to be an hour of good content and growth for you to drop in and learn something new and connect with other people. So you might have a stack of books beside the bed. You might have a list of podcasts that you want to get to. Sometimes getting to those is not that easy, right? So typically, if you've got something in your calendar, you'll turn up. So if you chuck this in your calendar, you'll typically turn up, and hopefully we're offering you content of interest. And today has certainly proved so. So DG is obviously a bit of a Kiwi legend, and it's a topic that's dear to our heart. So being as best as you can to support, develop, nurture the young people in your life. Something that's very dear to our heart, very popular. So our previous biggest power hour, I think we had like in the late 40s. We had 235 registrations today. So very, very stoked to have DG here. I'll add too that David is offering his time for free today because he's passionate and a generous man, and this topic is something dear to his heart as well. So we're very, very lucky to have DG here today. So without further ado, I will hand over to the man himself. DG, it's all yours.
Thank you, Andrew. Look, good morning, everybody. Firstly, I just want to say how much of a privilege it is for me to come and share my thoughts with people. I often giggle a little bit, my inner world, that people are interested in hearing what I have to say. So it's a real privilege to be here, Andrew. Thank you. And you're right, creating a better tomorrow for our youth today is, I think that is the most important work. So I'm really happy to be here and share ideas and have a conversation with people. As we move into that, really what I want to say too is what I'm sharing today is just my thoughts. So I don't want people at any level to feel like I'm trying to tell you how to do what you do with your young people. I've been very lucky to have a 22-year-old, or they're now 22 and 19, two daughters that have probably taught me more about how to support young people more than anything else in the world. So any more than podcasts or listening to people or, education. So for me, I really want to just note you guys first and encourage you to also understand and be easy on yourselves that, we don't have to be perfect to be good mentors. We don't have to be perfect to be good coaches. We don't have to be perfect to be good parents. So, what I'm sharing today is examples where I got things pretty average at times. And sometimes I got it pretty good. So please, as we go through the hour, don't feel like I'm talking about things being perfect. I'd rather you spend time just being yourself and being as you are than to spend time trying to be perfect to help our young people, because I really do believe that's our model that helps them just be pretty relaxed in themselves as well. So, for me, it's please just feel comfortable in what I'm saying is from just a pretty average human who's raised a couple of kids and had some really wonderful experiences along the way to hear amazing people talk about amazing things. So it's a gift for me to share that I've been lucky enough to get from a number of people over many years. So thank you. And with the deepest humility, please don't feel I've got anything, as a guru would say, is the way. It's merely just some thoughts, and you'll find those inside yourselves as well. So I'm looking forward to adding those together as we go through today. And then lastly, for me, I always want to thank my parents. They're critical to me. I look after them, and Dad's my coach and teaches me how to farm Herefords. And I'm trying very quietly to get Angus more on the farm, but he's still an Hereford man. So he's a lovely guy, 80 years old, and just an absolute well of knowledge. And Mum's the same age, so she's such a big part of my life. And both of them, without them having a little bit of fun a few years ago, I wouldn't be even here. So I like to acknowledge them everywhere I go because they're critical. And I hope as we talk about youth today that our youth get to a point where they see that about us as well. So it's all a circle. It's never about our bank accounts. It's all a circle of love and care and time. So I guess that's a pretty good introduction, Andrew, I reckon. So how do you want to move on from this bit? Do you want to just guide us, or do you want me to talk on, or
you just keep talking?
Mm-hmm. I think the key thing is we go about today. I'll talk us through a couple of things which I reckon are important, and the first one is to generate as a mentor or a guardian of young people. What I really feel is important in our own quiet time is to build a picture of what exactly we're wanting to see them to be like at the age where they become independent adults. And so if you're parenting, coaching, supporting, mentoring children, young people with someone else, well, then now I'm talking about alignment on that picture. So just not yourself. So if it's a small community of people or a small village or a small family that's raising a young person, this conversation is really important as a starting point, because I'll often ask people, so what's the picture? What's the picture you see for your young person when they're 18, 19 years old? And I'm not sure why I did that, but I did it quite early on as a dad, because a lot of people ask me, how did I raise my girls? And I always say to them, I've raised them as boys, because I'm a guy, so that's all I knew. They had some beautiful woman mentors around them that I really trusted, and I knew they would take care of that bit. So it allowed me to relax and just, think I had two beautiful daughters that were also my sons, and that was a real magic time in the way that rolled out. And then I sat quietly. I did this intentionally. I sat there when they were maybe, I think it was when they were going to intermediate school. So primary to intermediate, I sat down with myself and just thought through, what did I want picture to be like when they were 18 years old? And especially when it came to the decisions around sex and alcohol and drugs and freedom within life, because they're pretty big questions a lot of parents will ask me about. And it was funny because that process of sitting quietly and just having a coffee and going, let's just get serious, DG. What are you actually trying to create here for 18 years old, not 9 and 10? Because you get so caught up in the present, and here we are with parenting our kids in a very complex world. There's so much distraction. And then they become part of that too. In their own way, they get distracted by that complexity as well and struggle to keep it simple. And what I settled on is it was funny because I was sitting there and I had an image come in my mind, which was the Auckland departure gate at the international airport. And so most of us will know that departure gate. And I put myself in the position of being on this side of the departure gate. And I go goosebumpy now, because I'm like, in my head, I sat there and I pictured them going through the gate and around the corner and then saluting me and waving, see ya. And funny thing in my head is I didn't have any idea their destination. Like, they were just leaving. They'd organised it all. They had got me to drop them off at the airport, and I hadn't asked them where they were going. I just, in my mind, I hadn't asked them where they were going, because I wanted them to be at that point at 18, not needing to really share that. But of course, I wanted to share it with me so we could all live it and love it, but not in the sense of where you're going, what's your plans. And so I really got clear in my head that all of my work as a parent, as a guardian, was to find a way to create experiences for them to get to 18 years old, to go out the airport and go through customs and not be overwhelmed, not be traumatized, not to be petrified, and to go through there with a real openness to see what the world had to offer and make really good decisions. Now, that one exercise as an alignment exercise with husbands, wives, family, friends, godparents is so critical, because unless you're all on the same page, you'll have someone that's parenting in the here and now, which might be 15 years old. They want to go to a party in Dinsdale, and you're like, oh man, that's a pretty dodgy area. No way. And so you can see how you get yourself in all sorts of trouble, because then you're trying to control risk. And then, man, if you want to damage your relationship with your teenager, you start controlling things and see it go pear-shaped real fast. And so really helped that, because I just had in my mind, man, what if they go to Dinsdale? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's say Tamahiri. They want to go to a party at Tamahiri. Oh, my God. That place. Questionable people there, far out. So it becomes profound, because you're thinking, okay, if they're going out the Auckland airport at 18 and they're going to Cuba or Colombia, or let's say, right, or Rio, you better have sorted yourself out for them to be going there, because it's a bit more complexity, I reckon, than Tamahiri or Dinsdale. So it's like, man, let's just keep that in mind, because then you go, okay, so how'd that then roll out? Well, then I just went, okay, so if I want them going out Auckland Airport at 18, that's the picture. And then I went, what about sex, David? What about your daughters having sex? And I was like, whoa, bro, settle down. And then I was went, okay, so 15 to 16. So then I worked parameters, 15 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18. So I just set up these 3 parameters about that's where I've got to have done my work for them to have done their experience to be ready to go to Columbia. And then it was a piece of cake. I just said to them, right, girls, when they got to that age, right, they're getting 13, 14 and they're high school and boys are around and don't go to friends' places. And I'm like, sweet. So now I can start having these chats because they would come and say, oh, can I do this? And I'd say, yeah, sure. Yeah, it was always yes, 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 yes. So I never went, no, no, no. I went, yes, yes, yes. And that sets up flow straight away because then it was yes in mind with where I want them at 18. So when we get to say 15, because that was the key marker for me, which when things really started to change, they learned to drive and those sorts of things. And so at 15, I just had a rule, which is you just, yes, as long as you tell dad everything. Where you're going, I need to talk to the parents. I want to come drop you off and spend some time with them and be part of it with the parents and just and like that. So I'm going to be involved, but yes, the answer is yes. But dad's going to be there. And then that was sweet. It was like, oh yeah, sweet, you could come. That's right, that's sweet. Because you know, like, it's all right. And then I went, but I talked out to them about the plan. So 15 to 16, dad needs to know everything. 16 to 17, so now they got their restricted license. Dad doesn't need to know everything, just where you're going and when you're going to be home. So I've got a bit of an idea about the parameters of making sure if you need me to come and, you know, car doesn't start or something. And that's all I need to know. So you see how now I've moved to 16, 17. I'm also having conversations in there about them starting to make the big decisions around sex and alcohol and drugs and what they do and what they don't do, and made a real open conversation. But I also used to play 500 with them on Friday night too. So Friday night was 500 night, and that was a time for them to try alcohol. And so I've got that going in the background, which then that's a pretty cool thing to start doing is just card night. And then they're free to bring their friends as well. So that's going on. And then, so that's that second stage. And then 17 to 18, and they were really clear. I didn't want to know anything. They didn't have to tell dad anything. I didn't care where they were going. I didn't care who they're doing it with. Of course I cared. But what I told them was I trusted them at that stage to make their own decisions about where they go, what they do, with who they do it. Fill their boots. And I'm goosebumpy now because it was not an abandonment. They still knew that if they needed anything, dad was there, boom. And it was always in conversation about them at 18 years old, if they wanted, traveling around the world, feeling really free. So it helped me make big decisions about these things that a lot of parents get really caught up in, and then they start lecturing and trying to tell their kids how to be doing and what to look out for, and it just creates such a mess. And so I left that alone and then kept in mind the picture. And then the second layer I did when they were 10 and 9 is I always thought, what is the number one thing that I had to help them have so they got to 18 and through those stages with a courageous confidence. And this may sound a little bit weird, but honestly, I just thought they need to learn how to fight. As crazy as that sounds, I want them to be comfortable in close combat and not to get shocked by getting punched in the face. And I know that sounds pretty brutal, but man, I remember us growing up at primary school, that was the first thing you learned. You just learn how to be comfortable in the fight. It's just the way schools were. And so I remember mentoring a beautiful lady who was very, very competent in New Zealand and Australasia too at MMA. And this was years ago, and she was a beautiful person. It's amazing how soft and lovely she was. And yet in a ring, man, she was brutal. And then she said one day, oh, David, I want to really thank you for your support and give you some money. And I said, no, I don't want any money. One day I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you to come and mentor my girls. And that was our deal. And then that was years and years and years. And then I messaged her when the girls were at that age of 9, 10, 11, 12. And I just messaged her and said, hello. And she goes, is it time, is it? And so she would just come home and she would just take the girls in the shed, shut the door, pad them all up. And it was really safe. But man, it was also, it wasn't in the shed. She taught them in the shed and taught them how to fight, taught them how to fight each other, then had to fight her 2-on-1. And it was not an uncommon occurrence for the girls to come out with a blood nose and a bit wrecked up and not talking to each other. But by crikey, it just helped me really relax, and the confidence in them through their teenage years, being comfortable in a situation that I think for a lot of probably girls would have been unsettling, and they were still beautiful girls, so you wouldn't know that they had that confidence, and they did TKD early as kids as well. But I think it was that time learning how to do that with a mentor who's a beautiful person, and they could see how you can hold both, look after yourself and also be a strong woman together. So they could see how they could hold all of that. So for me, it was just understanding at 18, I wanted them to go comfortably out the Auckland airport and not be too fussed about some asshole somewhere around the world giving a bit of shit. So that was, for me, was just, I guess I say that a bit raw because I understood, and we understand there's a layer out there in the world and the way they look at people that unless you're confident and courageous, your vibration is one of vulnerability. And we know that, people that have a courageous vibration or self-confidence about themselves are less targeted by people that are not very nice. So I was just really clear that I wanted the vibration to be like, just let me drink my beer, man, piss off. And at the same time, be a beautiful, loving person. And I think they've got there. They're pretty cool people now, and I think both of them are just beautiful friends. So loyal, beautiful friends. So you can see, if I summarize it, Andrew, as we look at how we mentor our kids and set our children up for the future, the most important point is don't get too caught up on what and how you're going to do it, because that'll flow off being really clear about what the picture is that you're wanting to generate by the time that they are an independent adult. And you just keep that as your North Star. You just keep that really alive in the conversations with partners, with spouses, with family, grandparents, so that everybody's on the same page, so that we're all aligned about what exactly we're trying to do. And then the picture in my mind is I wanted them all to be at the airport as we wave goodbye. And
Dave, say that image for when they're 18 going through Auckland Airport. Some of the people on this calls, their images that they want their kids to be independent, have a bit of resilience, a decent work ethic, maybe.
Bit
of ownership for their life. Can
totally.
you think of things you did when they were like 10, 12, 14? Is it like go and get the firewood in? Is it like, what are you doing to build that?
What I'd love to do is I've got 5 critical decisions I reckon I made. And I think they're critical decisions that we all need to make to help us create the energy. Because Einstein said it, Andrew. He said, if you ask me what this is all, he was asked what this is all about, right? They asked Albert Einstein, what the heck is this thing all about? The big question. And he said, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's all about energy, and that's all there is to it. And I love that. So if you look at what we're thinking about doing with our young people, is we have to understand, I reckon, that we're guardians of energy. And if we can help our young people find the energy that we'll talk about as we go through today, everything that they need is in the box. They don't need, they do need skills, but I want to say is they need experiences. So our job is to facilitate experiences for them to learn a deep understanding of who they are, and the resilience will come from them working through these challenges and life adventures as they move through developmental stages. And so our job is to provide skills, but I think the thing which is more important is we didn't learn, you think about, because we can just think to ourselves, like we grew up, I'm 53 now, so I grew up in an era which I think was the last of the pioneer era. It was a time when if you wanted to, you could go and jump in a Robbie 22 helicopter and jump out of the helicopter and strangle a deer and rip it to the ground and tie it up and then hook it underneath and then carry it out, and you make $2,000, right? And there was no health and safety, and there were no regulations on that industry at all. So if you didn't think properly, you died. So we grew up in that area where people didn't teach us skills. Like I don't remember ever being taught a skill, but I remember learning skills from experiences and being mentored within a relationship was more like the apprenticeship model. So I remember watching my dad, and then he would say, right, your turn, away you go. And then I would be on my own to learn those skills through failing and through succeeding, and it would work and it wouldn't work. And he was always really clear about making sure what the guidance was required. But what I really want to say to people is we will learn the skills through experiences. And often I think we live in a world where we over teach skills rather than creating opportunities for children and young people to evolve their skills innately and naturally as they do it. There's nothing more powerful than learning by doing. I can read something, you can teach me something, I've still got to go and do it. And so for me, it's really, if we understand it's about energy, the energy will come from helping them find the experiences and step into the experiences and find their sweet spot of being themselves. So that becomes really important as we build our recipe for how we can be what we need to be. And so I'll just talk about these 5 critical decisions that I went through myself, which will help all of us then look at how we then create the context in which our young people will step into an environment, step into an experience, and everything that they need to learn, they will learn it as part of that experience, because the experience is the teacher. At the right stage, at the right age, it all just develops and they become more from a novice to an intermediate to an advanced just by experience. So the first decision, which was really critical for me, was the decision to focus on myself first. And I reckon this is so fundamental, as so many parents are busy trying to focus on their kids and focus on the youth that they're supporting, but they aren't living from integrity themselves. And so I just want to really reinforce that for me, the first decision I made really early on with my girls was be authentic and be myself. Full stop. Not be perfect, not be anything I'm not, just be myself. Now, what that meant is I had to get pretty clear about what I loved doing. I had to get really clear about who I was as a person, what I stood for, and what that meant as language, and what that meant as rituals, and what that meant as habits, and what that meant as integrity. Because there's a really important developmental stat, which I think we have to understand. We know from research that children learn from 75% of their learning comes from watching us. They learn from watching us do what we do, 75%. That's crazy. 25% they'll learn from what we talk to them about and what we say and conversations we have. But if we think all mentoring, all parenting, it isn't what you say, it's what you do. So the kids, if I just think about it that way, your children are always watching us. 75% of what they do and learn comes from observing mum and dad, uncle and auntie, coach, mentor, whoever that might be. So you can see how that's a profound thing for us today, because all of the questions, if we just put that to it, like how do we help our children deal well with pressure, right? How do we help children waltz with pressure, to dance with pressure, to have pressure as their best friend? Well, is it your best friend? Do you dance with pressure? Do you waltz with pressure? Do you have a pressure moment and you get your journal out and you go, whoa, put the GoPro on, kids, because dad's under the pump. I want to see how I rock when the bank wants to come and visit and the mortgage is going through the roof. Because that's would be my challenge. We want our kids to love pressure. Man, I want to come and see you on your darkest moment, see how you dance with pressure, because you are just a tuning fork, right? And so if we want our kids to deal with pressure, then you better have a resonance which is pressure's like my best friend. If it's my enemy, well, then 75% of that's going to be also in our children. So you can see how that first critical decision was really based on that, which is okay. But we have these quotes and sayings everywhere. Well, this one's a goodie. The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, does it? Now, right, I don't want to be like my dad. I'm not like my parents. No. Far out. I did a talk the other day for a little local group of farmers, and I was sitting next to some people that my neighbours, and one person asked the neighbour, "Oh, what's DG like as a farmer?" And I just leaned across and went, "I'm pretty average, but my dad's world class, and it makes up for it." And the neighbour said, "Oh, he's a chip off the old block." And I sat there and went, "Isn't that funny?" But it's not. I reckon when I look at my dad now, man, we are so alike. He's his own man, but when I look at him and I think about how I am, I'm proud to be like my dad. As a teenager, I did not want to be like my dad. But I look at it now and I go, yeah, I'm like that. And then I look at my mum and I go, actually, I'm quite like mum too. So the reality is we just have to relax in this place about how we influence our youth and then get serious with ourselves because they're watching. And that's the bit for me, which that really settles me down. It's like, okay, sweet. Doesn't really matter what I say. Sometimes I'm going to say the wrong things, but that's only 25% of the influence anyway. But I better make sure I'm behaving right. And that really settled me because I was like, sweet. So do your work, David. Know who you are. Be authentic. And that's the key thing I operate by. And everything I do with people is, who are you? What do you love doing? Now show me your weekly calendar so I can see whether you've been true to yourself or you're giving up on yourself. And that's how we do it. Where do we spend our time? And I love to do that real basic exercise, urgent and important versus unimportant, unurgent exercise. And I just look at my calendar and go, where are you putting your time, DG? Because if it's an unimportant and unurgent, that's my insecurities. They're my habits which come from my fears and playing safe and being careful and conservative, and I'm distracted from what's most important. So I just know who I am, and then I live in a world of integrity, which is I should be doing what's urgent and what's important because that's in line with my heart song and living authentically. And so that's the first decision, is we've got to commit to being authentic, which is committing to doing our work, full stop, full stop. I don't, for me, regardless of whatever else is happening, that's the first decision. So then that one becomes a really important starting point. And then the second one is, and this sounds really funny because most parents say they do, but the second decision was a commitment to create a legacy. Now, what does that mean for me is, well, what that meant is I was committing to my children to shine brighter than me. Now, that one might sound funny and go, no, all parents want their children to shine brighter than them, but my challenge is I don't think so. In the most beautiful way, I think parents like to feel competent and they like to feel useful and they like to feel needed. And then the way they do that is they over control and they do too much and they show the children how to do it, or they'll do it for them because they run out of time and they just got to get it done and they got to get in the car and get to freaking school. So I'll do it, let me do it. But that starts really early on. That starts with doing up shoelaces. It starts with getting ready for school. It starts getting dressed. It starts with, like you were talking about chores, Andrew. So if we can understand that our goal of making a decision to create a legacy is we want to create a world where in the end our children can do it better than we've ever done it. If we are coaching or we are supporting youth, again, it's about the ability to step back and quieten our ego down and go, this is not about me. This is not about me going to the supermarket and having parents say to me, oh, your children are so well behaved. Or getting school reports that tell you that your children are the greatest leaders of all time, whatever it might be within the school. So I really want to say that one because it's about that picture. And honestly, when I see my two girls now, they are way better than me at so many things. They think better than me at so many things. They're so much more composed than Dad. And so I'm really stoked about that. So we're committing to them doing it better than us. That becomes a real challenge for us about control versus guardianship. Guardianship's about creating a space where our children are growing, learning skills, and through experiences that we're setting them up to do it with us being support people, auxiliaries, rather than the protagonist or the main act. So then there's the second decision. Now, the third one might seem funny too, and make just common sense, but there's the decision to be deeply connected to our kids. Deeply connected. And I find that most parents get to teenage years and for some reason they disconnect. And they'll say that they need to give their teenagers have their own lives. And, ironically, what I said at the start was creating self-resilience in my daughters. But I wanted really clearly too to be someone that they could confide in and someone they could have good conversations in. And so the 500 night was a place for me to start having really deeper conversations, then teaching them to drive. I really grabbed that as a time for Dad with the girls. And I just, in my head, I just kept thinking, I want to have a conversation with my girls, which is underneath the superficial bullshit that often happens in conversations with teenagers. And so I'd ask questions like, how are you? How are you? And then I'd just sit quietly and they'd say, I'm going pretty good. And I go, what does that mean? How does good mean? And you seem really stressed lately, sweetheart. What's going on? How are you getting on? Dad wants to know. And so I really committed to dropping into being slow and turning my devices off and making time where it was just us. And then they would ask me, how are you going, Dad? And there's the moment. There's the moment of vulnerability. There's the moment of understanding what you can and can't share with your kids, but what you do share is important because it lets them see what they already see anyway, because they see it in you. So they see where the mum or dad's stressed. And so it's about being really, really vulnerable with them, appropriately so. And then I would say, okay, how are we going? How are we getting on? And so you see how that basic conversation was just about making sure that I've got strong connectivity with them. And then we got to conversations about sex and drugs and alcohol. That became an easy conversation because I'd be then saying, oh, how's it going with Johnny? How are you guys getting on? You've been hanging out for a while now. What's that going like? What's hard about that? What's great about that? And then there was also conversations about what do they need to, do they, if they want to take a beer, I'll go and help them. I'll buy the beer for them. And just the whole conversation about condoms and birth control and all of that sort of safety stuff was so easy within those deep connections because it wasn't uncomfortable at all. It was just general chit chat in the sense of being deep connection, conversation about hard stuff. So that was a decision. That was the third one. Then the fourth one for me was really around not wanting them to be accountable to dad. I wanted them to build responsibility for themselves and their lives. And this was really a real sense of one end of the spectrum is control and micromanagement versus guardianship and creating a space where they're responsible for their life. And you can see for me that just as a conversation with yourself is really important because often parents operate off accountability, and that's where kids feel like they have to do something, they must do something, they should do something, otherwise they miss out on something. And then there's this equation set up that I do X, Y, and Z and I get that, which is, a standard accountability process, which is, I think, how most parents work. We operate in the same way within organisations that we work for. We go and do X, Y, and Z, and we get money in our accounts every 2 weeks, which pays for the boat. So there's an accountability process set up. So the responsibility for me is a real big one, which is helping them understand that I'm not checking on them, that they are responsible for, and so let's go, this is, you talked about chores before, Andrew. From an early age, it's really getting clear about whose job's what. What's your job, sweetheart? Okay, so your job is the firewood. Okay, what does that mean? Oh, okay, I've got to make sure that this is ready, the kindling's cut, the fire's going. Okay, so now, if we just take that as a simple exercise, most parents, if the fire's not going, would go and light the fire. And now you're micromanaging straight away because your child might be doing homework or they might be doing something else, which is reasonable. That's an important thing too. But you see how there's a little example about, are you controlling or are you creating responsibility? And then it's about that moment of the fire not going, is going to find your daughter and saying, sweetheart, I'm just checking about the fire because it's really cold. Oh, yeah, that's my job, Dad. And then she'll go and do the fire. That's a nice little conversation which just sets up, I guess, a responsibility to take. I haven't done it for her. She's done it. So you can see how within that, everything we're doing is people are clear. And if we take an organisation, it'll help really, really establish it, is if I should be able to work into an organisation, walk into any organisation, walk up to someone and say, what's your job? And why is that important? And then I should be able to say, what does that mean? What is the role and responsibilities for your job? And how are you going at it? Improve that to me. But that conversation is an organisation, if that's really nailed, responsibility for my work rather than accountability to have to, should, must, that person I ask should be able to have a beautiful conversation with you about their job, why it's important and the greater vision of the organisation, etc., etc. But you should be able to say that when you rock into someone's home, 19-year-old in there, or a 17-year-old in there, or a 15-year-old in there is like, what, help me understand your family. Who does what here? Place is immaculate. It's wicked. Who does all that? And we're having a real nice dinner. You go for dinner, you can see roles and responsibilities straight away. Who's doing the work, doing the dinner? Who's setting the table? Who's helping it? Who's cooked it? Who's rocking around, and who's in the entertainment room? Who's in the kitchen? What's the outside of the house look like? Come and go on a weekend and see what's happening around the house. Who's doing the lawns? Who's doing the garden? Who's getting the chickens in? Who's doing what? There's a house of responsibility versus accountability. Accountability usually is parents are micromanaging, telling kids what to do, setting it up, the pocket money's attached to it, etc., etc., etc. And so you can see how, for me, there's the decision that I want to build responsibility for what they're doing, responsibility for their results at school, responsibility for getting themselves ready to go to a sports training. So there's another one. They want to play soccer. Sweet. All right. Training or swimming. Swimming's a goodie. Want to go swimming? That's cool. Do you know how much that involves? Yeah, it's pretty hard out. Yeah. What time's training? 5 a.m. Whoa, okay. So let's say they're 13, 14 years old and they're doing swimming, or even a little bit younger maybe. And then so who's setting the alarm clock? Who's getting the kids out of bed? First day, kids aren't up, alarm's not off, right? No one's going. You rock out of bed at 8 o'clock and the kids are just getting up. Yeah. And they're like, oh, we missed training. We missed training. Yeah, no, I got up and you weren't awake. So I thought you actually changed your mind. You don't want to do swimming. Just sweet, I just made a coffee and went back to bed. They're like, oh, wow. Boom, game's changed. Versus knocking on the door, come on, get up, it's 5 o'clock, we've got to be in the car in 15 minutes. That's accountability. That's control.
I was going to ask, Dave, what age would you let them leave for, say, school without like their lunch or their jacket, or, is there an age which is like, what, we're going now if you don't have all your stuff? Tough.
Well, when would that happen for us? Mate, that happened for me from 5. If I didn't make my lunch, Mum helped me make lunch, but I didn't make my lunch. I didn't cut my lunch, put my bag together. My daughter, youngest daughter, she went to her first school camp, I think, at like 8 or 9, 10 years old. And she came home one day and I said, how was it today at school? Oh, we're talking about camp over in the Kaimais. I said, oh, cool, what was it like? She said, you know what? Some of the kids don't even know how to pack their own bags. It was something like that, right? It was something like the teachers were teaching the kids how to pack or what they needed to be packing to go on an overnight trip. I can't remember what the age was, but it was around there. So there's another example of it. How do we help? Because from 5 years old, when you grow up on a farm, you've got to be contributing, feeding the chooks, getting the calf in. You don't get the calf in, we don't get milk in the morning, right? There's some really key things that happen for the family that I can remember Mum and Dad doing. They didn't do it for us. If I was doing that, the firewood example, lighting the fire, we got taught how to light a fire, cut kindling with a really blunt axe. You couldn't even cut your finger with it. It was that blunt, right? So you learn how to do things at the right stage in developmental steps. But I remember from age 5, 6, 5 was you were having to drive the short wheelbase Land Rover while the old man fed the hay out in the back. So imagine being 5 years old, standing on the seat, driving the wheelbarrow. I mean, driving the wheelbarrow down the paddock. It was about as long as a wheelbarrow. So don't forget what we went through, because it was the old era and everything was in there. And if you didn't make, Mum would say in the morning when you get up to go adventuring, as I was probably 5 or 6, 7 years old, 7 years old, probably 7. No, it would be 7, going eeling with the neighbours. She said, remember, dinner's at 6 o'clock and it's a long time from dinner to breakfast. Have a great day. And there it is. You can get home. If you miss dinner, you miss dinner. And I know that sounds hard, but you got home. You don't remember. I don't remember missing dinner. So I think that's important. There's a level in here, which I guess this is just my thinking. I'm quite happy for a child to go hungry at school for one day to then make sure they've got their lunch packed for the rest of their schooling. And then that's that whole adage about, how are we actually, what are we actually parenting? Are we parenting from fear? Or are we parenting from courage and parenting from understanding that the best lessons that they can learn is lessons they learn through experience? I used to take pretty basic sandwiches to school. It was just bread, Marmite, bread, peanut butter, but that worked. So you can see how that whole idea of responsibility taking so powerful. And then the last one for me was I got clear really early about what the hell success is. And I reckon that's really important. Like some of those questions have come through today. If you can then take from this question, you'll find your answer. And I guess I just want to use some examples to help us see what I mean by this. So the Honda Motor Company was formed, and people might not know this, but the old Honda Accord engine drives Red Bull Formula One. Right, that's pretty sweet, eh? So next time you see a Honda Accord, just remind yourself that that's the engine that drives Red Bull. they drive 70% of all the Formula One cars. 70% of those cars are Honda performance engines. Indy 500 cars, all Honda. So really, Honda's the number one sports engine in the world. Now, why this is important is they are world leading, world dominant. When Mr. Honda started that company in 1904, he said to all of his engineers, I demand that you blow up 100 engines because the 101st will be a revolution. I'm like, what? And though today, if you start as an engineer at the Honda Motor Company, you have to sign a contract that says if you're perfect, they will fire you. You actually sign a contract that says if you are perfect, we are worried you've been too careful and too conservative, and we won't find the revelation or the revolution or the next step of these performance engines. So we will ask you to leave. Now that's pretty cool, right? Like that's saying success equals fail. He also said, because I reckon you can change that to learn and grow. The second thing he also said is, I ask you, because he's Japanese, right? So I ask you, politely ask, that you put your heart and soul into doing up every screw and make sure each screw is tight before we move on to the next one. And then take the engine to the lab and see if we can blow it up. So he was saying success in this organization is integrity. Integrity to the process, integrity to the plan. Have we got a plan? Man, we have got a plan. You mentioned what the engine plans are like, right? Cool, full stop, got a plan. Success is now do the plan with your heart and soul, full stop. Then we'll go and see whether it blows up or not, but we'll get to that. Don't worry about the target. Don't worry about the outcome. Let's just stay here in the process. So you can see how success there is all about baking the cake. It's all about the process. It's all about integrity to the plan, and teaching our children that at an early age is, I reckon, one of the most important characteristics you can help them learn, which is success is integrity. Success is have a plan, do the plan, full stop, heart and soul, not how'd you go. We'll get to that, but the outcome will always take care of itself. You get some icing, you don't get some icing. I want to have a cake that's pretty scrummy cake. So you can see how in that moment, if we go success is integrity, is have a plan and do the plan. We can now help our children over time start to understand that success is having a plan and giving everything you got, full stop. So you can ask let's say they're 9, 10 years old going to a sporting event. Okay, what's the most important thing to remember today? Oh, got a plan? Yeah. What's your plan? Run real fast. Real fast. I'm going to run real fast, Dad. That's a good plan, son. Good plan. That's all we need. He's got a plan in his head. Get the ball and run friggin' fast, man. And then on the sideline, or you can even say, how fast is fast? And you say, maybe so fast I'll fall over because I'm going so fast. My feet can't keep up. Yeah. So you see how now you're actually starting to build a lot of fun into building what's the plan, and starting that with youth, starting when they're really young. And then that can just change as they get older and get more advanced and more developed, because you want to get to points. So what's the game plan today, son? Okay, we've got this game plan because we're playing this team. We've got these 3 or 4 things happening. What's your job in that? I've got to do this and that. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're doing this and that. So I'm going to be on the sideline and I'm going to be watching you do this and that. You want me to keep a tally of you doing this and that? Yeah, cool. Okay, and afterwards we're going to go and have ice cream at Blue Duck. Mate, is it Blue Duck? Duck Island. Duck Island. And then we're going to look over what my stats are for you doing this and that. And that may be whatever it is in their sport, right? It's not an outcome target, it's a process target. And now you're living into that. Now all of a sudden they're in a final and the pressure's really high. Now they're watching 75% of whether you wake up and you dance for that's finals day, right? You should be so freaking electric. That's finals day. What's the goal? Do my job. Right. Tell me about that. What's the plan? Da. Full stop. Nothing about don't make mistake. Nothing about win. Nothing about get selected into the national squad. Nothing. That's all in there too, which is, yeah, that'll be cool. That's sweet. You could come back into the conversation. Okay, what's the plan today? So you can see how if we have success equals integrity to the plan, all of your conversations are about the process and baking the cake, whatever the age and stage is. We still have outcomes. We still have goals. They want to make the national squad. Great. Let that flow. That's a wonderful goal to have, son. Wonderful goal to have, sweetheart. Whatever it might be, because we want them to strive and aspire. They're beautiful business targets. But then don't mistake a target from a goal to a target. The target is what they want to achieve. That's the outcome. Sweet. Put that on the wall. I want to represent New Zealand Olympics. I want 4 gold medals. Wicked. Be in that. Celebrate that. What does that mean? What does it involve? How are you going to do that? And then there's the conversations which help them come back and build it up and build it up, and then they get clarity. Okay, there is this thing I want to achieve, but now I understand to get that, I've got this, and this. And now we're building layers and layers of, I guess, substance underneath what they want to do. And then in our mind, it's really making sure that our attention's going to process. Where we put our attention is where our energy goes. Where our energy goes is what we reinforce psychologically, and it increases the probability that that will be their focus point moving forward. It's that simple. You focus on process, focusing on process for long enough, they will focus on process under pressure. And under pressure, all it does is it magnifies the way that we do it psychologically. So it goes from there to like there. And then they will go process. And then they'll be free to dance. But if you're going outcome, don't make mistakes, and the first thing you talk about afterwards is where they make mistakes, then that becomes their neurological priming. Under pressure, what are they doing? They're scared, they're conservative, they're careful. That's not because they're struggling with pressure. That's because we've set up a different relationship with pressure. So we've got to make sure our relationship with pressure is based on, we want to dance with it. We want to make sure that we're building this process. So I hope that makes sense, but you can see how that decision to redefine success is such a powerful conversation to have with our kids. What's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? That's all we have to ask, and you'll hear whether they're stuck in outcome or process. The goal is, we want to win. Yeah, that'll be cool. So how are you going to do that? What needs to happen for that to happen? Oh, I can't make any mistakes. Oh, yeah, that'd be pretty cool, but you're going to make the whole 80 minutes of rugby, 90 minutes of soccer? No, you're going to make some mistakes today. Back, I reckon, you're going to make a few. So there's got to be something else than that. So you can just have that conversation. You don't have to be brilliant at saying it. Just keep digging. Oh, yeah, just got to run fast. Yeah, run fast, clean out hard, get the ball. If you haven't got the ball, go find it. And then there's the conversation. You're on the sideline with your little notebook out, taking stats, and people are like, you're a high performance parent, aren't you? Yeah, look, hard hits. That's the way to go. And you imagine then they go on to represent New Zealand. That's the mindset they're going to bring. Get interviewed by the media beforehand. Oh, you guys have made it to the international final of the Australasian, whatever it might be. What's your goal today? I got to run real fast. Oh, my GPS is going to tell me, am I running as fast with the ball in hand or not? Yeah, right. And then that's where it's like set up. You can guarantee they're going to go to sleep the night before that big moment, and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to go to sleep because I'm so freaking excited. The alarm will go off in the morning, be like, yeah, they'll be up and they'll be in their flow, have a breakfast, they'll be ready. Their guts won't be turning upside down. They'll just be really excited with nerves.
Does that answer the question, DG, around the young person that's putting heaps of pressure on themselves,
yep,
like elements
totally.
of perfectionism? So you're redirecting them back to the process.
Well, I'm wanting them to be perfect in the process. Mm-hmm. So if someone's got perfectionism, fantastic, right? But remember, perfectionism and imperfection are very different things. People say to me, I've got perfectionism problems. And I'll go, prove it. And they'll go, oh, I just focus on everything that's going wrong and it's never good enough. And da-da-da-da. And I'm like, whoa. No. You haven't got a perfection problem. You've got an imperfection problem. You just focus on the crap. And they're like, oh, yeah. So if you're a perfectionist, the rain is perfect rain. The mud is perfect mud. Imagine how far you're going to slide in the mud today. This is a perfect day for playing footy or whatever it might be, right? So I'm sorry about all the rugby metaphors, but that's the sport for me. So you can see how there's nothing wrong with perfectionism. Perfectionism is a fantastic thing. The Honda Motor Company, Mr. Honda said, I want you to be perfect with every screw. I want you to be perfect with the process. Be perfect with the process. What's perfection with the process? What's your job? What's your job today, and what does that look like as a goal? And then how are you going to do that? Well, my boots are going to be clean. I'm going to have this sorted. I'm going to talk to these people. I've got a really good game plan. Just be perfect with that. That's a beautiful thing, to be perfect with the details. So I hope that makes sense, as there's nothing wrong with perfectionism, but it becomes a problem if it's about trying to be perfect in the outcomes and the results, because that's when you set up some really unhealthy psychology. So I always encourage my girls to be perfect. I want them to be perfect. I have this thing called moments of perfection. So my daily review with them when they came from school at 5 was, what's your best memory from today? Where was a moment that you felt went really well, even perfectly? Tell me about that. And so I want them to celebrate it, want it, and be really comfortable being perfect. Because that's another thing, is I reckon we've got this situation where a lot of people struggle to stand up and be with themselves because they got this thing, if you can't, don't stand up too tall because you get chopped down. So I want them to be really proud privately about moments where they're perfect, moments where they nail it, moments where they win, moments where they get selected. All these things, the targets, outcome perfect, let that happen. But really bring it back to being perfect with the process, setting the alarm at the right time, making sure your food's ready the night before you go to bed, making sure your bag's packed, making sure that we nail the preparation to leave. That's the thing, right? There's the process. So I hope that makes sense.
In closing, DG, anything, and you might be doubling down on stuff you've already said, anything you can suggest to help a young person see themselves in a good light so that their self-image is strong?
Make sure that your own self-image is strong, because remember, they're a tuning fork. You're the vibration of a tuning fork. So you start the first resonance because you're the parent. If they have a view of themselves which might be a little bit questioned or compromised, I want you to check your own view of yourself. What's your language about yourself? How do you behave? Are you living from courage, or are you living from fear and careful and conservative and have insecurities that seem to be dominating your behavior? Because that's a resonance. Like to have low confidence is an energy resonance. To have high confidence is an energy resonance. So the youth will be picking up the resonance of your vibration, and then they'll vibrate at the same resonance, whatever it is, just based on 75% of what we do. So the key thing is we've got to behave. If we want them to be brave, I'd always check, how brave have you been? When's the last time you did something brand new? Where were you the novice? Where were you showing them examples where you couldn't do it and you're knuckling down on having to learn something brand new? So you see how most parents in the kids' eyes are perfection because they've been doing something for 40 years. And they're not doing something new. So they look competent tying knots. They're like, oh, my dad knew fencing yesterday. He's 80 years old. He is perfect at fencing. Then he gives it to me. It's your turn. Man, my fence looked terrible. Right. So there's an example. He's just like this perfect example for me. So I guess for me, if we can see that with our children growing up, seeing mum and dad at various times be novice, that's going to help them comfortable be novice too.
Beautiful.
Mm.
That would be a good place for us to end it. Thank you, mate. Very, very, very grateful for your time and your wisdom and for sharing that with us. Seeing everyone on the screen there, I'm seeing people take screeds and screeds and screeds of notes. Also on a call like this, we started with 100. For most of it, we had 99. You know, so that's not many dropping off. So thanks heaps. Thanks everyone for joining us here today. If you want to get a hold of DG, track him down. Is it habitofgreatness.co.nz?
Yep. They'll find me for a little while there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Other than that,
So
just a big thank you from all of us, man. Thanks heaps.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
For joining us.
Thank you for asking me in, mate. I really appreciate it. Good luck, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the year. Have lots of fun.
I just waved to the